June, who would you say is probably one of the more famous American presidents?
Well, I would say my favorite is Abraham Lincoln.
Excellent answer. A lot of people say the same thing.
Really?
And Abraham Lincoln was a great president, not only because of the way he saved the Union in the Civil War, but kind of the person that he was.
Yeah.
And you got to remember, Lincoln comes from the frontier, like Jackson did. But Lincoln has a different approach to it. He's a self-made man. He's a self-taught man. But he's also a kind of a homespun, humble man. And this comes out in a lot of his speeches and in his writings as well. When he was running for president, his big competitor was Douglas. Okay, and Douglas was a Democrat. And Democrats at this time, at least the southern part, they supported slavery. Now Lincoln is in this new party called the Republicans like we know them today. And they were all about getting rid of slavery. But Douglas had a way of making slavery almost sound acceptable to people like you and me.
No
who would
way.
otherwise say, I wouldn't do that.
Right.
Okay, now for years, politicians in the South have been kind of covering over slavery with the idea of states' rights. You know, the states have the right to decide who and what laws they want to enact and they want to pass. So after you've heard that enough, if you heard the term states' rights, you'd immediately think what? Slavery. Okay, it was like code for slavery.
Oh.
Well, Douglas knew he couldn't say states' rights when he's debating Abraham Lincoln. See, they went around and they did live debates trying to get people to support their candidacy. They didn't have television or radio or anything like that. So Douglas dreams up this great fancy term for slavery, or at least allowing slavery in the States.
Okay, so a wordsmith.
Yeah, a little bit. He called it popular sovereignty.
Sounds about right.
Sounds kind of nice. It doesn't
Yeah.
sound kind of dirty or bad like slavery or even states' rights. It's popular sovereignty. Kind of like something you could get behind, something you could support, right?
Sounds like a politician to me.
It does. And Lincoln turned that against Douglas. Lincoln used some of that homespun wisdom that he had learned and used in his law practice on the frontier and basically called Douglas out and said, well, popular sovereignty, that kind of sounds like people get to choose the right to rule, doesn't it?
I'd say it does.
Absolutely. He goes, so in other words, the people in the states have the right to choose their laws. And of course, Douglas is going, well, of course, it's popular sovereignty. He goes, so in other words, you're just saying slavery. So he calls Douglas out in a debate like that, and Douglas was not in any way able to recover from it.
Whoa, what a great move.
Oh yeah, and it was basically Lincoln, like I said, this self-taught man, this guy who apprenticed as a lawyer, never really went to school, was taught at home to read, and just took off in an intellectual quest, a journey of learning for the rest of his life, beat Douglas, who went to a fancy school and a college and came from a big city and a wealthy family. So Lincoln kind of shows that this frontier man, this archetype, can be a leader.
That's awesome. What else can you tell me about Lincoln?
Well, have you ever heard of the Emancipation Proclamation?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It was a proclamation, like the title says, so Lincoln was proclaiming. So what do you think the term emancipate means?
To separate or get rid of or
Or to free.
Ah.
See, the Emancipation Proclamation basically said that all the slaves were free in the states that are in rebellion to the Union.
Okay, so it wasn't just like, we're done with slavery, everybody's free.
Exactly. Lincoln knew
Wait
he
a minute.
couldn't just do that.
Yeah.
Because the support he had in the border states, which were 5 states that sided with the Union, but they still allowed slavery. States like Missouri, okay, Delaware, Maryland, okay. They didn't want to join the Confederacy, but they didn't want to give up their slavery. So Lincoln said, we'll
Okay.
work it out.
Oh, okay.
So but he knew if he said, all the slaves are free, Well, there's 5 states that would go to the Confederacy right there in the middle of the war.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, not at all. So in 1863, Lincoln makes the Emancipation Proclamation, but again, it's that homespun wisdom, that common sense, where he knows he's still in the middle of a war,
He's got to be careful.
but he's got to get rid of slavery.
Right.
See, the first half of the war was fought to preserve the Union, to get the states back together. But Lincoln knew that slavery could not continue to exist. That was part of the platform he ran on as the first Republican president. We were going to abolish slavery. So he does it real smoothly. Again, all the slaves are free in the states in rebellion against the Union.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Well, I said all the slaves were free. Did you hear me? I said all the slaves will be free.
Oh, yeah, you did. I heard
Yeah,
that
see, I
part.
said all the slaves were free, and all the states are in rebellion of the Union.
Ah, I see what you're doing,
Yeah.
Casey.
So, see, June, Lincoln was brilliant, not only in a play with words, but also he was a brilliant strategist when it came to politics. So, when we look at the Lincoln-Douglas debates, the Emancipation Proclamation, the genius that is Abraham Lincoln really comes to show past that sort of rough, aw shucks ma'am exterior that he had and that helped win him the presidency and makes him, still today, one of the most popular presidents of the United States.